Please go ahead, Malkwa. It's on your side.
Indeed, I will, Ayo. Well, this morning we're very pleased to have with us in the studio Mr. Akeregha, who is the bureau chief of the Guardian newspapers here in Abuja. Oh dear, I'll be very grateful, if this talk back will be corrected. Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Akeregha, welcome and a very happy new year to you.
Good morning, same to you. I always feel a sense of patriotism to be in the studio.
A sense of patriotism. Yes. It means I'm a Nigerian every day.
Of course.
A real Nigerian doing a good job every day,
Absolutely.
If that's what you say. But we're very happy to have you this morning to take a look at the papers with us. Let's start with this one, New Telegraph. We saw the story yesterday. A statement was released from the presidency. Their big headline, Kukah offended Nigerians with anti-Buhari remarks, as according to the presidency. Faults Muslim groups quit notice, ultimatum to Bishop. It's on page 3 of the paper. There's a quote there. Father Kukah has greatly offended many with his controversial remarks against the government and the person of the president, with some even accusing him of voicing anti-Islamic rhetoric. Individuals like Bishop Kukah must respect the feelings of his fellow Nigerians in his private and public utterances. Well, Bishop Kukah is no stranger to controversy, he has been on the pulpit and also in political life. I mean, he's been very involved in the return of democracy to Nigeria. He's been very involved in writing and chronicling some of the atrocities that happened, during the period of the military junta. I think he was also on the panel, the Oputa panel, that chronicled some of the ills. And he's played a very active role in the transfer of power from, one party to the next. Recall the peace meeting. So this, for some people might say it's a tad strange. Did it hit you differently?
Well, I think it is very sad that certain elements, particularly from the northern part of Nigeria, are perceiving Reverend Father Kukah's comments as anti-Muslim, anti-Islam, anti-Buhari, and all of that. These rhetorics are not good for national cohesion or unity. I must also make the point here this morning that, as you rightly said, Kukah has been very, very consistent, whether politically. He's on the National Peace Committee with General Abubakar, and they've traversed the length and breadth of this country. In the last elections, he and General Abubakar went to Edo State, across the state, getting candidates to sign peace accord for, peaceful elections. And Reverend Father Kukah is a man that speaks Bishop Kukah is a man that speaks truth to power. Right. So for anybody to say at this point that, Kukah is attacking anyone, I mean, it means such individuals are not familiar with his own line of thought. He's a highly mentally cerebral person who is very honest, a patriotic Nigerian. Everybody knows that. And my worry, I have friends across all the religious divide, whether Christians or Muslims. As a journalist, I have lots of friends across. And if we want to build a country, we must have this sense of tolerance for the views of others. And Bishop Kukah has his right within his powers to express his views. And nobody should say that Kukah also criticized Jonathan. He criticized even the late Yaradua and Obasanjo. He criticized him. He's been very consistent. If you're doing the wrong thing, he's going to tell you are doing the wrong thing. And if you're doing something good, of course, he's going to applaud you. As you can also see with Pastor Tunde Bakare and all of that. So like we have a lot of Nigerians who are speaking truth to power. And when you speak truth to power, it is not enough for people, particularly the presidency. I think they are just quite intolerant about
so that could be, I mean, that definitely, but part of what they're trying to do, I mean, even though what was highlighted here is Kukah offended Nigerians with anti-Buhari remarks, but basically, is that part of tolerance? What one of the statements tried to do was talk about tolerance. It says, faults Muslim groups quit notice, ultimatum to Bishop. I do know that on more than one occasion, I've had the privilege of, interviewing Bishop Kukah, and I've asked him about, religious tolerance in Sokoto, he is the Bishop of Sokoto Diocese, and we all know that there's the center of the caliphate here in Nigeria. And he says, oh, the people of Sokoto are so tolerant that they actually call him their bishop. He is the bishop of Sokoto, as it were, and that's how even the Muslims see him. So this ultimatum being given by this group, should we say we're taking it lightly, especially on the back of recent warnings by the DSS, saying that, you know, some people are, you know, trying to incite or stoke religious violence across the country? What are your thoughts? Did you see it in that light at all?
Well, I also think that those who are giving this, there is a tendency, a preponderance of certain sections of the country, or certain individuals or groups, giving other Nigerians, other citizens, quick notices to leave certain regions. Once you are a Nigerian citizen, you have the right within you have the constitutional right to live in any part of this country. So nobody, no faith-based group have the right to issue quick notices to anyone for that matter. So this quick notice to Bishop Kukah, to anybody in the first place, is ab initio very wrong. It is unconstitutional. It is illegal. It's marks of extreme intolerance, sorry to say. So I think it should be ignored. It should be consigned to the trash can. And the DSS has a responsibility here. Those issuing the quick notices must be brought to explain why they are issuing such notices. Is it within their right to ask other Nigerians to leave certain parts of the country? Is that not actually stoking ethnic tension, religious tension, as it were? Because if you are asking, for example, Christians to leave some parts of the north, then Christians in maybe the southern part of Nigeria will be asking Muslims to also leave. Where are we headed with all of that? The problem really has to do with our constitution. The constitution that promotes, that promotes religion much more beyond citizen patriotism. For example, you are filling forms to be employed in government agencies and all of that. You'll be told to specify your faith, whether you're Muslim or Christian, the part of the country you come from, your local government and all of that. All of these are discriminatory against the rights of citizens to live in any part of this country. And you also see the federal government sponsoring faith-based organizations on pilgrimages, whether they are Muslims or Christians. All of this should stop. And that is why people have this tendency to think that, once you belong to one particular faith, you are possibly superior to the other and all of that. We must decamp from all of these thoughts so that we can collectively build a country.
Did that statement underscore it enough? The statement that was released by the presidency, did that statement send that message home enough?
Yes, I think for the statement by the presidency saying that, condemning the quick notice, that is very reassuring. It is commendable. But the presidency must also go beyond that to actually get the DSS or the security agencies to take some people in and use them as examples. Because when you issue quick notices to other Nigerians and nothing is done, then of course it becomes a norm for people to issue notices. When those who issue these notices must be arrested, they must be questioned and possibly put on trial so that they can tell Nigerians where they are deriving such rights from and such powers from. It's very important. Let me also add that Dr. Khalid Abubakar, the Secretary General of the Jamaatul Nasrul Islam, he has a PhD, and for me, for many of us who are watching his comments, it's a bit below the mark. It is unexpected of somebody who has attained that height of academic qualification. There are ways you pass your comments across. If you disagree with anyone on the basis of his views, you could either go to court or state your own views in the public domain and not to issue quick notices and then issue threats to people.
Well, a number of other stories are making the rounds here, just beneath the nameplate. Buhari, Kalu, Tinubu, Governors Ohaneze, Mon, Ndubisi, Kanu. You saw that story yesterday, obituary yesterday, very sad one. Pages 3 and 7 hold the story. You also see the NSAS, hashtag NSAS, 233,000 candidates to receipt SSC papers. How did that happen? It's on page 4 of New Telegraph. You might want to pick it up. But Ayo, I'll let you have the next paper.
It's interesting that Ihud, looked at that newspaper, the New Telegraph took that story from that angle. Ihud, maybe I want to put you on trial a bit here, because sometimes it's the responsibility of the editor to lead, the charge of the story. That's the angle of the New Telegraph to that story. But look at how the Daily Independent puts the same story this morning. Presidency backs Kukah on right to practice faith. Presidency backs Kukah on right to practice faith and politics. Says he may have stepped on toes while attacking Buhari. Cautions Islamic group over stance on the bishop. And then if you look at the lead story of the Nigerian News Direct, it says, ultimatum, leave Father Kukah alone. Presidency tells Islamic group. And all of that. We'll come to the other one later. But if you look at this, Iho, how is the responsibility of the editor here in shaping opinion about a particular story?
You can see that the Daily Independent story has the capacity to calm frayed nerves, because it is, there's all of these comments coming from whether the Islamic groups, and you also see that certain Christian groups or certain Christian leaders are also responding to the threats by these Islamic groups. That is not going to help the country, and the statement from the presidency is very reassuring today. I'm sure whether it is those issuing the threats from the north or those countering the threats, everybody now knows that the presidency has backed Kukah, even though the Christmas homily by Bishop Kukah actually targeted the Buhari administration, pointed out all the deficiencies of the government and what he thinks, in his own views, in his own opinion, what he thinks that the presidency can do right to move Nigeria as a country forward and to better the lives of Nigerians. I think that is the responsibility of citizens. When you elect, beyond even being a bishop, it is within the rights of Bishop Kukah to speak to those in power, to those we have all collectively elected. If you're elected...
One moment, Mr. Akeregha. You have already dealt with that issue generously. The angle I'm trying to get you to is the angle of the editor, who handles the story and takes it from a particular perspective. When those things come up, we are looking at the same story here, same source, different angles by different editors. Sometimes one wonders, what is it that goes on in the mind of the editor before captioning a story, and what is the intent? What do you think?
Yeah. Basically, in mass communication theory, there's a theory in mass communication that talks about selective perception. Now, when there is a content, a news story, which is the content now, editors can interpret what that same story is from different perspectives. That is within the theory of selective perception. What you see as black may be seen by another editor as white. But basically and generally, all editors have a responsibility, to build national cohesion, to promote peace and stability of the country with the kind of stories they put in the papers. That is why you see in the papers this morning, you not see that the story is treated with incendiary languages. It is, yes, you could see that the headlines are capturing the story from different, using different languages, but they are saying the same thing. Now, for the Daily Independent, it captured the story from the angle of the presidency, whilst I think the New Telegraph that I spoke extensively about captured the story from the rhetorics coming from the two sides. Basically, it is within the right of the editors to put the contents across the way they perceive it.
Let's really take a look at the Vanguard then, because I know that many Nigerians are going to be looking at the dailies now and looking for how each one is capturing a particular story. But let's look at the Vanguard now. You see COVID-19, stakeholders back reopening of schools if, there's a big if and then you have the ... there. What are the conditions? Page 5 holds them. ASU, NANS, NUT, NAPTAN back reopening of schools on conditions. Schools not drivers of pandemic, that's according to UNICEF. Closure of varsities, unconstitutional, disastrous, that's according to Afeba Balola. And students threatening to beat up VCs, lecturers over closure. That's according to Uniben VC. I don't want to say no surprises there, but this is definitely not good. I mean, why am I laughing then if it's not? But some things just, sometimes get comical.
I think it's frustration. The students are getting very frustrated.
When you look at the story. Yes. But what's your stance, given what you already know about this virus and given where we are, the second wave and what have you not? What are your thoughts on it?
I think it cannot get worse. We're already almost at the peak level of the virus in Nigeria, and...
You're sure of that?
Yes, that's my thought. It's my opinion this morning. I don't think it's... If you look at... I spent the vacation in Delta State and in some states, and you just find that people they don't bother. The poverty level is such that when you have not found food to eat and somebody is telling you that there's a coronavirus that is going to kill you, and they just cannot connect with it. But that is where the danger lies, actually. Indeed, if we have community spreading of coronavirus across the remote areas of Nigeria, and you see that communication is not trickling down. It is those of us in Abuja, Lagos, Kano, Port Harcourt, the capital cities, we are so conscious of this. People wear face masks. I wore face mask in Warri when I was trying to fix my car, and then one of the mechanics got so close to me, I was talking, and I said, please, can you just give me a bit of this? He said, why? Oh, God, carry this thing, go, and all. So, and all of that descended on me as if I was the only one wearing face mask.
As if you're the one that brought the corona.
Yeah, as if I haven't brought the corona from Abuja. They said, if there's anything like that, I must be carrying it. So that is the perception, Yeah. And I think that the government really needs to do more, step up the National Orientation Agency, the Ministry of Information and all culture. They need to, drum it down that indeed the virus is spreading. Now, as for the reopening of schools, it is very important. It is essential now that the students must have to go back. But what is also very important is that the management of the various universities must put in place strategic preparation, such that when the students return, when wearing of masks should be very compulsory, as it were, and then, of course, washing your hands with running water, with soap and all of that, it should be mandatory, and then social distancing within the lecture halls. So these are very important, non-medical procedures that the management of universities can adopt to also put at bay the spread of the virus. Some are saying that the universities are going to be super spreaders, but I don't think I share that view.
Well, you have a number of other stories. I'm a little spoiled for choice now because you can only comment on one more. Currency outside banks rises 55% to 2.3 trillion naira in 5 years. That's one. Navy warns Niger Delta militants over threats to resume attacks. Clerk to Akpabio, stop meddling in NDDC affairs. Federal government sued over sole administrator for NDDC. That's also there as well. Then you also see this one. Ex-soldiers protest pension arrears at Finance Ministry. You're only allowed to comment on one. What's your choice?
I would like to speak on the Niger Delta. I was at the event yesterday where, the sole administrator of the NDDC visited Chief Edwin Clark. Chief Edwin Clark is a notable Niger Delta leader, well respected, the first Republic Minister of Information and all of that. Now, I think the bane of the crux of his comment has to do with the East-West Road, which is being constructed almost more than 10 years or so. Perennially, nothing has been done. And the sole administrator of the NDDC was informing Chief Clark yesterday that the Ministry of the Niger Delta Affairs, of course supervised by Minister Akpabio, and the NDDC, we are going to collaborate to complete the road. And, Clark was very livid with that comment that why would Kano, for example, has the federal government is spending about 60 billion naira to construct 3 major roads in Kano, whilst the East-West Road, which is a major economic hub, from the north to the south, is being left, to be constructed by funds meant to develop other key infrastructures of the Niger Delta. And I think I agree with him. If the federal government can't construct 3 roads in Kano with 60 billion, and then you have the Ministry of the Niger Delta, the budget is 18 billion, and Akpabio says he's going to spend 16 billion of that amount on that road. And the NDDC is going to also pull out the necessary funds to develop the Niger Delta in collaboration with the Ministry of Niger to build that road. So a lot of Niger Delta indigenes are very livid, and I think that is also why the militants, while I think the militants should not sabotage oil facilities and all of that, it is also very incumbent on this administration. I commend the Buhari administration. If you look at the Niger Bridge, it is being built. The work there is moving at a rapid pace, unlike the rhetoric of the past that, we are going to build that bridge. So we think the presidency should do more, focus on developing the Niger Delta, curb corruption within the interventionist agency, whether it's the Ministry of Niger Delta or the NDDC and all of that. The sole administrator alluded to that previous administrators of the NDDC, many of them did not actually comply with extant regulations, governing how monies accruing to the NDDC was spent. So all of that, are issues that the EFCC and the ICPC should have looked at, and people should actually be in jail. I think the impunity is what is also causing a lot of these problems.
Well, the Niger Delta is a whole story. It would take 3 days at least to look at it. But let's go to Lagos now. Ayo, what's the next paper?
Well, trust me, Niger Delta Master is not just 3 days. It will take a whole lifetime. But let's very quickly look at two new newspapers. Nigerian News Direct, of course, I mentioned it earlier. Its story, its paper leads with ultimatum, leave Father Kukah alone. Presidency tells Islamic group. Fani Kayode, Sheikh Husani, Omokri react. We've spoken extensively about that one. But if you flip to the front page of your newspaper, the Guardian newspaper, while textile sector remains on brink despite interventions, Executive Order 003 of 2017, only on paper, government major culprits. Want to find out who said that? Fewer than 25 of over 300 textile companies in operation. While Nigeria cannot export raw cotton despite boom, with consistent policies, Nigeria has huge potential, says Ogunlesi, and WTO exposed Nigerians to cheaper textiles. It will seem like the Guardian newspaper this morning is calling for a state of emergency on the textile sector, because really, I mean, it was a big sector in earlier years of Nigeria, and now this is where we are. Tell us more about this.
Well, the Guardian has done a good job this morning by reminding all of us where the rain started beating us as a country. Beyond oil, we are talking about non-oil revenue. Between 1999 and 2021, what has successive governments done? Executive Order 003, we are going to rebuild the textile industries, monies were pumped into the place and all of that. Remain a paper tiger. Nothing has been done. And that is consecutively and successively, that is how we have managed to put the country on the spot in terms of unemployment. We have teeming Nigerian youth, graduates, and they can't find work to do. So, and just recently, the IMF has agreed to give the country $1.5 billion in loan, and we have so many of these loans coming in. Why? Now, it beats my imagination why we are unable as a country, this time when I'm talking about government, is unable to put a lot of these resources in specific sectors. For example, if you look at Oshodi those days, Kanu and certain areas where you see Nigerian fabrics, Ankara and all of that, these were materials, these were fabrics that put Nigeria on the global map in terms of local production of fabrics. Now we have lost cotton production, where the textile, the garment factories have all shut down, and the impact of that is unemployment. So the Guardian is saying this morning that we can go back to where we lost the track, where we missed the road, and then put our money where our mouth is. That is what the Guardian, that is the import of what the Guardian is saying this morning. And that when governments sign orders, orders are meant to be implemented almost immediately. You see what happens in the U.S. If the U.S. president signs any executive order, it is implemented almost immediately. But here it appears as if, we just sign these orders by way of trying to pretend that we are serious about what we want to do, whilst importantly, we are just not serious. We are playing to the gallery. So the Guardian has done a good job of that this morning, and it is a reminder to government that that is a sector that actually needs its attention.
Well, a number of other papers to look at, but we're totally out of time because you're dealing with each one so succinctly this morning. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning and speaking it how you feel it this morning. Akeregha is the bureau chief of The Guardian here in Abuja. Again, thanks for coming on Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much.
The program continues shortly. Please stay with us.